Alright, so welcome back to Creature Comforts. So for this video, I thought we'd go over the cards because there isn't an index that explains all these cards. And there's something I just noticed and just realized. I was playing the game thinking that there are only certain numbers you can do for placing dice at the location, this location. But it's actually all of the dice. You can place any number of dice and something's going to happen. So you'll notice because this, covers each of the dice. This covers this dice. These three dice are covered with this. So I just want to make that mental note now that if you place a worker here and you place a dice here, you can do something here with it regardless of what number it is. Of course, you may not always be able to do it because it's not something you might have either. Like you may be able to do this, but if you don't have a coin, then you couldn't do it anyways, right? So let's explain how these cards work. The snapping turtle, all month long, every unresolved worker earns 2 more of the lessons learned tokens than usual. So if you have a worker and he didn't get utilized because you didn't have a dice for him, for instance, or something like that, right? Instead of just getting 1 lessons learned token, you'll get 2 more, so you'll get 3. That's what that means. And if you put the 1, 2, or 3 down at this location with your worker, you can exchange 1 storybook for 3 goods of your choice. Now remember, storybooks are not goods. If you put a 4 down, you can discard a card for 2 coins. And if you have a 5 or 6, you can, pay 1 coin to get a storybook. And you'll notice there's a 1x on all of these. So you can only do each of these 1 time. Okay? That's how that's going to work. This woodpecker here, all improvements and comforts cost 1 less wood displayed on their cards. Or 1 less wood then displayed on their cards for the rest of this month. So if you get this for a month and you decide you're going to play, you're going to get yourself an improvement or a comfort and you're going to play that comfort, then it's going to cost you 1 less wood. So if there's only 1 wood in its cost, then it's going to cost 0 wood, for instance. So that's nice. And of course, if it's got 2 wood on it, then you only have to pay 1 wood. So that's cool. And then if you'll notice this location here, the first 2, 1 and 2, if you put a 1 or 2 here with a worker at this location, you can obviously exchange 2 grain, 1 grain for 2 yarn, and you can do that twice. Or you can exchange 1 yarn for 2 mushrooms, and you can do that twice. Or you can exchange 1 mushroom for 2 grain. You can do that twice because it says 2x. So that's cool. Okay, so I probably won't explain every single one of these. You get the point. You can do it a couple of times if it says you can, or if it doesn't say anything at all, like this top one. It doesn't have a 1 or it doesn't have any number, but you can still only do it one time regardless. This one you can do twice, this one you can do once. But it's, pretty simple. So with the striped skunk, after visiting the owl's nest, you may search through the discard pile and claim 1 comfort of your choice. So if you place a worker at one of these 2 locations and you get a card from here or the deck, then you can search through the discard pile for another card of your choice as well. And there'll be something in the discard pile because in the beginning of the game, you start with 3 cards, you look at them, and you keep 2. So even if you're playing this game, even if you're playing this game solo, you're still going to get 1 card from the discard pile. So that's something. Okay, moving on. So the black bear, who sort of looks more like a brown bear, if you ask me, than a black bear. But the black bear, all month long, all 4 valley locations provide 1 apple in addition to what they show. So that means that these 2 cards here, which is the forest and the meadow. This is the forest and this is the meadow. These are both the valley. They both count as the valley. All 4 of these locations are. But this is considered the forest and these 2 are considered the meadow. So basically, it doesn't matter where you're placing your worker at these locations, it's all 4 of them that will provide 1 additional apple for the rest of that month. That's cool if you get the black bear. That's pretty cool. So that's how that's gonna get. How that's gonna get utilized. Pretty cool. Moving on. Okay, so the pine marten. All month long, workers may be sent to forest locations on your turn. So may not be sent to forest locations. On your turn, you may assign dice to resolve forest locations as if you had sent a worker there. So with the pine marten, you can't place worker here, but you can still place dice here later. And then if you do place dice here, even though there isn't a worker at these 2 locations, if you place dice at these 2 locations, you'll still get the resources regardless. So that's cool. That means it gives you some additional options. That's a very positive thing. Extremely positive, extremely useful. One of the best ones here, if you ask me, is the pine marten. Moving on. Okay, so the hairy-tailed mole here. All month long, stone and coins may be used as each other for any purpose. So if a card requires coins in its cost, but you don't have coins, you can use stone for the cost instead, and vice versa. So that's cool. Just for that 1 month, though. Still pretty cool. The American beaver here, both forest locations provide 2 additional wood to what they show. So it's just these 2 locations here. So if you were to place a worker here, and it was this month currently, and you currently had the American beaver out, then, and you had a successful location, obviously, you had a worker and you had the dice you needed, instead of getting just simply 1 wood and 2 apples, you would get 3 wood and 2 apples, because it's 2 wood in addition to whatever you're going to get there anyways. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, moving on. Common loon. Okay, so the common loon, all players, this is an immediate effect. All players pass 1 worker to the player on their left. During placement, you must place the neighbor's worker before placing the rest of your own. And you may not move the worker your neighbor placed. So basically, you get to place one of your opponent's workers at a location. It may be beneficial to them, it may not. You don't know for sure, of course, always, and neither does your opponent when he's placing one of yours down. And neither can you move the one that your opponent placed that was yours. So it's kind of an interesting strategy. It might mess you up, but, that is a loon for you to mess things up. That is kind of loony, for sure. This is definitely a loony card. It makes sense since it's what it is. It's an actual loon. So that's interesting. That is definitely interesting. Now, I think I'll explain this one because this one is also a little loony when you look at it. So, if you place a worker at the inn where the traveler cards are at, and it's a 3, 4, 5, or 6, what you can do is you can exchange 1 good of your choice for another good of your choice. But you'll notice it has this question mark here, right? This question mark means you can do this a certain amount of times based on what the dice is. So if it's a 3 that you put, then you can do it 3 times. If it's a 6 you can do it 6 times. It's basically what that means. So that's interesting that you can do that. That's kind of interesting. So that's the common loon. Moving on. The Canada Lynx in turn order. Each player must pick 2 goods of their choice from the supply to give to the player on their left. They do this immediately. So you're gifting your opponent 2 goods, and they're gifting you 2 goods, etc., etc. Pretty simple and straightforward. You do this immediately. In turn order, each player may claim a face-up comfort from the owl's nest. And then, obviously, they refill the owl's nest. So, yeah, so you get an additional card to start with at the additional month. In turn order, so whoever's going first that round gets to do it first. So that's the Gray Wolf. It's kind of an interesting card. It gives you a free card, basically, that's face-up. Obviously, that's pretty cool. Okay, the Leopard Frog. Immediately place 2 lessons learned tokens from the supply here. Each player may use them on their turn. So you're going to place the two of these tokens. Okay, they're going to go on this card. They're going to stay on this card until someone needs to utilize them. So let's say it's your turn, it's player one's turn, and they need to decrease or increase one of their dice rolls, right? One of their dice placement areas. Then they can grab these, okay? But once their turn is done, they will return these tokens to this card. So that way player 2, player 3, player 4, and if you're playing with 5 players, player 5 will be able to utilize these as well. So it's for everyone to utilize. So that's kind of nice. I like that. It's not just one person who gets them. It's everyone who gets to utilize them, if they can utilize them. That's pretty sweet. That is pretty sweet. I like that a lot. And so let's go ahead and move on. The Common Raven. Immediately, in turn order, each player places a coin from the supply in a different location. This month, those locations provide coins in addition to what they show. So it's interesting. You get to place coins at all the different locations. You could place a coin here at this location and take a face-up card. And then you'll get a coin here. Anybody who places their worker here for that month will get a coin for going here, is what it means. So everyone's going to place one coin, and they can only place one coin at each location. They can choose which location they want to place a coin there. Probably a coin on a spot where they're thinking of placing one of their particular workers at. And then everyone else will have access to that too. So you could potentially get a bunch of different coins if you place a worker at a location that also has an additional coin. So that's kind of interesting. That's basically very interesting indeed. I like this one too. All right, so the Moose here, end of month. In turn order, each player may gain a storybook from the supply if they give a gift of a good of their choice to another player. So you can give a good to another player to basically get a book. But if you decide not to give your opponent a good, then you don't get a book either. But you do this at the end of the month as well. So that's interesting. So you can be nice and give them a gift and get yourself a book, but maybe you don't need a book. And if you don't really need a book, hey, then you don't need to give your opponent a gift either. If you don't need a book, honestly, that's pretty simple and straightforward. It could be useful to some players who need a book, and then it could be also obviously beneficial to yourself if you don't need the book either, and then your opponent doesn't get anything extra either. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, so the Blue Jay here, at the end of the month, each player may resolve one valley location of their choice using the village dice only, as if they'd sent a worker there. So basically what that means is this is done at the end of the month, okay? Now remember, after each person goes, they will return the 4 village dice back to the hilltops, which is on the board up here above the house. And they will obviously utilize the same numbers, whatever they are, for the next player. For player 2 will use the same ones on this side, obviously, and so on. And then at the end of the round, once everyone is gone, that's the end of the month, right? And then each player may resolve one valley location once again, okay, of their choice, using village dice only. So they could potentially use these to activate these locations again, basically. And they all get to do it. So that's kind of cool. Obviously, you'd probably have to do it in turn order. But the point is, it doesn't really matter if you do it in turn order or not, because once you're done using them, then your opponent will get to do it and utilize them, and so on and so on. So that's kind of cool. I kind of like that one too. Okay, the Wild Turkey. After rolling family dice, each player may change one of their own family dice to any result they wish. So hey, you rolled your family dice here and you weren't happy with the results. If you have the Wild Turkey in the area, then you can turn this into any one you want, but just one. Okay? But just one. And everybody can do it after they roll their family dice. So that's cool. I like that one too. That's all of those traveler cards. That's all of them. So I think we explained, all of them pretty well. If there's something in here you don't understand, let me know in the comment section. If there's something you don't fully understand, maybe one of these worker placement spots I didn't explain. I didn't explain most of them, but maybe one of these are confusing you and you might need some extra help. So if you just let me know in the comments if one of these is confusing you, or maybe one of my explanations wasn't precise enough. So just let me know in the comments if you need any help with these cards, if something's confusing you. But hopefully this video does the ticket and helps you guys out. So now I'm not going to explain. Before we go, I'm not going to make a video explaining these. Of course, if you guys really want me to explain the comfort cards, let me know in the comments, and I might do it. But these are very simple, easy, straightforward to understand. They're really easy. And most of them are just straight victory points anyways. So it's not, I don't think it's necessary to explain the comfort cards. Now, as for the improvement cards, I might do a video on these in the future. If you guys would like me to explain how all these work, I will explain these as well in the future. Just let me know in the comments if you'd like me to explain these improvement cards to you guys, okay? And I will. But I have explained some of them in some of the other videos anyways, especially in that how to play video. I think I definitely explained the orchard, for instance. So, anyways, if you guys liked this video, don't forget to leave me a like, a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.